I'm Reverend Ron, Enlightened Spiritual Master and student of A Course in Miracles. This video on welfare is under the direction of the Holy Spirit. For those who disagree with what we say, I accept full responsibility. To those who agree, I take none of the credit. I give all credit to the Holy Spirit. With that, let's get started. Welfare is a big political football. To liberals, it represents something we should do on a grander scale to provide for the poor. To conservatives, it represents a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. Now, as with a lot of these political arguments, accurate facts are hard to come by. My gut level feeling is there aren't as many people drawing welfare as the conservative politicians tell us, and they don't receive anywhere near the amount of aid we are told they receive. The ruling class and their political stooges keep those of us on the lower rungs of the economic scale in fear and wage slavery through fear of the IRS and hatred of the welfare recipients. We fear the IRS because they can send us to jail if we don't pay our taxes, which is an entirely reasonable fear. And we loathe the welfare people because we are taught to do so by the political stooges and the ruling class, which is not reasonable. Just a little research and reading would soon convince us that life on the dole is not a rich and easy life, and they don't buy Cadillacs with the fortune they get. As a matter of fact, what little they do receive doesn't go into IRAs and 401ks and things like that. It goes directly to the necessities of life, and seldom is there anything left over. In that way, they put the money and whatever aid they do receive right back into the economy. Now, the other thing about the public assistance industry, as I call it, is it actually creates a lot of jobs. Go into any welfare office and take note of the number of employees, and these are all relatively good jobs with benefits. All of this is aggravated by our practice of trickle-down economics. About 40 years ago, we were sold on the idea that as the rich got richer, their surplus money would somehow trickle down to us lower classes. As a practical matter, that doesn't happen because no one ever has enough money, and especially the rich don't ever have enough money. In the end, that idea is totally and completely absurd. It just doesn't happen in real life. If you had trickled down blood supply in the human body, the parts that receive the trickle would develop gangrene and have to be amputated. That would be the equivalent of the ruling class calling an airstrike on our inner cities and sending in the SWAT team to mop up. Now, of course, that would be politically incorrect. And even our ruling class and their government stooges wouldn't do that. At least I don't think they would. In the end, we need to think of our welfare recipients not as an unwanted burden, but rather as an opportunity to do God's will. To fulfill the will of God perfectly is the only joy and peace that can be fully known, because it is the only function that can be fully experienced. This being the case, how are we to know joy and peace from the endless supply of consumer goods our society produces, and the top 1% of our population having 90% of the wealth? How can an endless supply of consumer goods and the bloated bank accounts of our ruling class lead to joy and peace while our inner cities are full of hungry adults and their children who live in poverty and neglect? In the end, we all have to ask ourselves, can this be God's will? How is this going to give us joy and peace? Now, if we could all work together for the common good during World War II, it would seem that we could work together doing God's will to create a better life for all of us. In closing, thank you for watching, and with the help of the Holy Spirit, we will build a better world for everyone.